Hello and welcome back to another video. Thank you so much for returning to my channel, or if this is your first time here, thank you so much for tuning into my channel. So today we are going to be talking about the impact our words have on our children. This is a topic that I've been extremely passionate about. This is something I've been researching a lot on my own and just trying to be consciously aware of it because I really want to make sure that the words I'm using impact my child in a positive way. Now, before I go any further, this video is not to bash or put down any of the old common phrases that we typically use. If you want to use those phrases with your kid, by all means, go ahead. That is your kid, your parenting style. You are welcome to do what you want with your child. However, my hope for this video is that I provide you with some resources that you can further look into on your own and make you think a little bit more about the way we talk. Because sometimes I feel like we just talk without really thinking about it and thinking about how much of an impact our words really have. This video is directed more towards children. However, this video can also be applied to people of all ages. It's important that we watch the way we talk to people from birth all the way until they're elderly. Our words really do have a huge impact on people, and that's what my hope with this video is to make you more aware and more conscious of the way that you're thinking. Now, we've all heard that really famous quote, "Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me." We've heard that, right? Well, is that true? No, it's not true. And there's actually more evidence now than ever that shows that words actually have more of an impact on us than we've ever thought before. Words are always going to affect us differently depending on our personality and how we perceive it, but for the most part, the way that we talk to people and the impact our words have, especially on a child, is extremely important, and it actually helps create the person that they become. A lot of the famous quotes that you hear, like "sticks and stones may break my bones" or "toughen up" or anything along those lines, those were created as a way to get you to persevere and push through. So I do think that those have a lot of benefits to them. However, it is important to know that there is more research that shows that our impact of words really do mean a lot. So we need to look at that data as well. Sometimes a lot of people, especially older generations of people, they have this mindset of, "I was raised like that and I'm fine, so I'm gonna raise my kid like that and my kid will be fine." And that's called survivor bias. Now, what survivor bias means is that because nothing happened to you, there's nothing wrong with that. And there's nothing wrong with thinking that if you love the way that you were raised, by all means, go ahead and raise your kid exactly like that. However, I think most parents want better for their children, so that's why you want to go ahead and try to push through those social norms or traditions to give your child a better life than you had. Wouldn't it be amazing if we could actually help our child, whether it be with confidence, self-esteem, or just their personality overall, by just using different wording? I think that's pretty amazing. It's something that we can work on day to day that requires little to no money, and all it really requires is our full attention and conscious parenting. So at what age does words really impact a person? Well, believe it or not, our words really start impacting our child from birth. Of course, words impact us throughout our whole entire life. However, the younger a child is, the more impressionable they are, and they're more likely to find what you say to be impactful. So whether you're saying something really nice to them or something really mean to them, they're going to interpret that as themselves. What I mean by this is children tend to become what they believe, and children typically believe what they are taught. So if a child is taught that they are bad, they are mean, or anything along those lines, it's no surprise that they're going to go ahead and believe that. However, if a child is taught that they are hardworking, they are capable, they are a good friend, they are a good person, and so on and so forth, then they're more likely to believe that. As a parent, have you noticed that our children typically tend to become what we expect of them? For example, if you constantly say that your child is a bad eater, have you noticed that your child just continues with these habits? Well, that is because that is what is expected of them. The child has internalized that they are a bad eater, therefore they're going to continue with the same habits. On the flip side, have you ever noticed that whenever you give your child praise for something they do, let's say, for example, your child picked up all their toys, and you say, "Thank you so much for picking up all your toys," they seem really happy and they're more willing to do it later on because that is what is expected of them. Children believe what you put out there. The words you say, although you may not have any harsh meaning behind it, that is what they internalize and that's what they think of themselves. Ultimately, our wording really does have a huge impact on how our children end up looking at themselves in the future. As mentioned in the psychology article linked down below, they mentioned the most common mistakes parents make when communicating with their children. Now, if you watched my first video where I talked about parenting styles, this is going to go back to that. If you haven't watched that, I recommend you going and watching that. However, I'm going to briefly explain what I talked about in that video as well. The article stated that there's two parenting styles that really tend to struggle when it comes to communication with their children. The first parenting style that typically tends to struggle with communication with their children is the authoritarian parenting style. Now, the reasoning for this is authoritarian, remember, that is the one where you kind of are just telling your child what to do. So you're being more demanding. Your child really has no input on what they say, what they feel, or what they do. It's just, this is my way, this is what we're doing, I'm the parent, you listen to me, and that's kind of the exchange that they have. The reason that this parenting style struggles with it is because people in general, especially kids, they just want to be heard. All of us want our voices to be heard, and children are definitely no exception to that. With this parenting style, it is very much a one-way road of communication. So if a child's voice doesn't feel like they're being heard, or they feel like they're not having enough say in their life, of course they're not going to listen as well. The article also mentions that because the child has so little say in their own life, that it actually makes them feel worthless and have a lower self-esteem. The second parenting style that has a hard time with child communication is permissive parenting. Now remember, this is the parent that just lets their kid do whatever they want. There's no boundaries, no set rules for this child. So this is kind of like a free-for-all. The parent's like the fun one. Every kid kind of wants a parent like this because there's really no structure. However, this is not a great parenting style when it comes to communication because there's no boundaries. Children need boundaries. They need to know what is acceptable and what is not. And how do kids learn that? By modeling. So kids learn that through us. In summary, children need a say in their own life, but they also need boundaries. As a parent, it's important that we establish those two, and then we can have better communication in the middle as well. Now, what do I mean by changing our wording from those common phrases? Now, this is just going to be an example of something so simple, but it's so impactful that you can do by changing your wording. For example, let's say that your child hits you. Instead of saying, "You're mean," what we could say is, "That really hurts when you hit me. Let's please keep our hands to ourselves." This is basically saying the same exact thing. However, the little changing of wording has a huge impact, and I will explain that. Now, when we say the phrase "you're mean," we are telling the child that themselves is a mean person. And that is not the case. Even though we probably don't mean that if we say that to our child, we're not calling our child mean. We're calling the behavior mean. So that's what we want to do. What we want to do is change our wording from, instead of being directed at our child, to be directed at the action that we don't like being taken place. So let's look at that example again. If I say, "You're mean," I'm calling my child mean. However, if I'm saying, "That hurts when you hit me, let's please keep our hands to ourselves," I did not accuse the child of anything. What I did instead was I explained why what they did was wrong, and then I told them what they had to do, which is keep their hands to themselves. By changing my simple wording around, I'm taking the blame from my child and putting it on the action that was being done. Therefore, I'm not labeling my child, I'm labeling the action that was done and setting a boundary. So I'm telling them that was not okay to do, and you need to keep your hands to yourselves. Is it the same thing? Kind of, sort of. However, it's amazing what this big change of wording can do to a child's self-esteem. If we're constantly saying you're to our kid, telling them "you're so mean, you're so smart," we're telling those things, the kid's gonna internalize that and think of themselves as that action. And that's not who they themselves are. They are a person. So we need to make sure that we're talking to our child as a person first, and then describe the action and set the boundary afterwards. If you're not familiar with this, I know that this sounds crazy because it sounds like such a simple change of wording. How could that really impact a child? However, there's so much studies out there that show that these simple changes of wording have a huge impact on our child's self-esteem, on our child's confidence, on their communication, on their capability, on their school life, and their work in the future, and just overall how they respect themselves and others. If this is something that interests you and you really want to be more aware of how you're talking to your child and how to make your words really impactful for your child, then I encourage you to give it a try. Will you mess up? Of course. I've been trying this approach with my child since I had first learned about this when he was about 4 months old. Do I still mess up? Of course. It's hard, especially if we were not raised like this. Without realizing it, we tend to throw out all these phrases that we were told as a child or we were told growing up. And without realizing it, sometimes in the heat of the moment, we can say something to our child that wasn't well thought out. So that's what I just hope that you do, is that if this is the approach you want to take, just try to be more conscious of your wording and how that can impact your child. Link down below is also a really good article that was written from the Eastern Florida University, which stated that we will mess up. That's inevitable. We are going to mess up. However, it could still benefit our child if we mess up. The way that it benefits our child if we mess up, and the way that I try to look at it too, if I'm feeling really hard on myself because my choice of wording wasn't so great with my child, is not everybody's always going to be talking to my child like I talk to my child. Not everybody's always going to be showing my son the action he did wrong rather than calling him out as a person. We can't shelter our children as much as we want to shelter our children. That's just not the reality. So even though we make mistakes, as long as we're conscious with our words majority of the time, those little slip-ups that we have won't have that big of an impact on our child. This week, I do not have a counterpart to oppose this point of view because all of the research shows that the words we say to our child really does impact them for the rest of their lives. Those of us that are closest to our children, so specifically parents, teachers, grandparents, whoever has a really close connection with our child is going to have the most impact on our child. Now, this is a little scary, I know, because the way that we say our words could impact our whole child's future and their self-confidence and all of that. I know it's scary. But if we consciously think about it, we can make the right choices to talk to our children, to have impactful conversations with them, which will better their self-esteem, better our communication with each other, and better our trust with our child. In closing with the video, my overall hope is that you just remove yourself from how you were raised or these common phrases and you think on your own about what these phrases mean to you. Now, if you were told a lot of these common phrases such as, "You're so smart," or even "It's okay" growing up, then you might be okay with that and you might not see there's anything wrong with that, and that's totally fine as well. However, if you think deeper about these simple words we were all told growing up, by changing them just a little bit, we can actually really impact our child. Now, just because we change the wording doesn't mean that we think we were raised incorrectly. I personally think that I was raised pretty good, and I never really thought too deeply about the words my parents said to me, not until I started getting more into child development. Do I think there's anything wrong? No. Is that the survival bias in me? Probably. But do I want to raise my son like that? Also no. I want to raise my son better than I was. I want him to have more confidence than I had. I want my words to actually mean something to him instead of just being a robot to my child. Next week, I will be going into the common phrases that I was told as a child, or my husband was told as a child, or we just heard as children in general, and how we alter this and what our overall hope is to alter it. So if you're interested in that, please tune into next week where I will be going more in depth on simple phrases and how you can change it to make your words more impactful for your child. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you can, go ahead and like this video, share it, subscribe, all of that good stuff. Leave me a comment down below. Let me know if you've ever thought of this before, if you've ever thought of how your wording really affects your child, or if this is just something you've never thought of before. Also, if you can please follow me on my Instagram page. It is linked down below. It's @parentingwithkelly on Instagram, where I post daily DIYs that I do with my son. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next week. Thanks. Bye.